Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
So glad to be back. We have some really fantastic material today.
We absolutely do. Today's source material is actually derived from this really cool SpeakDuo lesson. It's based on a roundtable interview with actors like Benedict Cumberbatch and Channing Tatum, and the language they use is just, it's so incredibly rich.
Oh yeah, the phrasing in that interview is just top tier.
Right. And really quickly, before we jump in, you can go to speakduo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls. It is, honestly, the best way to become more confident with your speaking abilities.
It really is. And just to set the stage here, we are diving straight into the idioms today. We're skipping the basics because this is really tailored for advanced English learners, people looking to elevate their professional and conversational fluency.
Exactly. We're looking at those phrases that really paint a vivid picture. And the first one is a perfect example. Cut one's teeth.
Oh, I love this one. So to cut one's teeth, it basically means gaining your initial foundational experience in a field. It's that, that early period where you're learning the ropes.
Like starting at the very bottom, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's establishing those core skills that you're going to rely on for your entire career.
Now, I always try to map new phrases to ones I already know. So how is this different from, say, getting your feet wet? Because they both describe starting something new.
I mean, I see why you'd make that comparison, but think about the physical reality of those two things. Getting your feet wet just means, wading into the shallows, right?
Like just trying something out.
Exactly, just dabbling. Like, you could get your feet wet in graphic design by messing around on software for an afternoon. But cutting your teeth, that implies a rigorous, almost painful foundational growth.
Because it comes from babies literally teething, right?
Yes. Think about it. That process hurts. It's frustrating. It keeps you up at night. But the result is this permanent, essential change that makes you a professional.
Wow. Yeah, that physical imagery really locks it in. So if you were, let's say you're answering an IELTS speaking part 2 question about your career, you could say something like, I cut my teeth in the fast-paced world of local political campaigning, which prepared me for national office.
That's a perfect use of it. Or even in an interview, saying you cut your teeth in retail customer service, it proves you survived the proving ground.
Right, but once you survive that and you have that foundation, the expectations definitely rise.
Yeah.
Which I guess brings us to our next phrase, to buckle down.
Yeah, because once you've cut your teeth, you really have to shift gears.
And buckle down is another highly physical one. I always picture someone like literally tightening their belt or strapping into a seat.
That's exactly where it comes from. It's defined as focusing and working intensely on a task. You're eliminating distractions and just applying all your effort to the job in front of you.
So is that the same thing as burning the midnight oil?
Not quite, no. I mean, they are related, but burning the midnight oil specifically means working late into the night. It's entirely about the time of day.
Oh, I see.
But buckling down, that's about intense, zero distraction focus. You could buckle down at, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. It's a mental state, not a time on the clock.
That is such a useful distinction for the workplace. Like, I can totally hear a boss telling the team, with the final regulatory deadline approaching in only 3 days, we need to buckle down this weekend.
Exactly. It's a call for absolute focus. But here's the thing. When you buckle down on a project, you really need reliable material to work with.
Which introduces our next phrase, factual data.
Yes, factual data. And it's defined as information that consists entirely of verified facts and measurements.
Now, in business, I hear people talk a lot about conventional wisdom. How does factual data contrast with that?
Oh, they are completely opposed. Conventional wisdom is just what people believe to be true. It's assumptions, right?
Right, like saying we've always done it this way, so it must be right.
Exactly. But factual data is objective reality. It's the timestamp on a photo or, verified customer surveys. It doesn't care about what people assume.
So in a workplace scenario, if you wanted to sound really authoritative, you could say, I based my recommendation for the new software entirely on factual data from the Q3 official reports.
Yeah, you're basically saying, I'm not guessing, I have the proof. But honestly, factual data is kind of useless if you can't see the patterns within it.
Oh, that makes sense. You have all these facts, but you need to know what they mean.
Exactly, which is where connecting the dots comes in. It means understanding the logical relationship between different facts.
Okay, so is this like reading between the lines?
I would actually push back on that a bit.
Really? Why is that?
Because reading between the lines is about guessing hidden meanings or emotions, sensing what someone isn't saying. But connecting the dots is taking visible, objective pieces of information and linking them together to solve a problem.
Oh, wow, that's a great way to put it. So going back to, say, an IELTS Part 2 response, you could say, after analyzing the fragmented feedback from our focus groups, I finally managed to connect the dots and identify the core product flaw.
Yes, that is a fantastic example. It shows real analytical maturity. But, sometimes even after you connect all the dots perfectly, disaster just strikes anyway.
Yeah, things just change overnight. Which is a perfect transition to our next phrase, to fall on one's feet.
Right. To fall on one's feet means to be remarkably lucky after a difficult change.
I always think of a cat falling out of a tree but landing perfectly on its paws. But how is this different from bouncing back?
It's a subtle but important nuance. Bouncing back implies a period of recovery after a failure. Like, it takes time. But falling on your feet means landing in a surprisingly lucky or advantageous situation almost immediately.
Like zero downtime.
Exactly.
So in a conversation at work, you might say, even after his department was abruptly dissolved, he managed to fall on his feet, landing a better paid position at a competitor within weeks.
Yeah, it's that immediate, almost unfair luck. Of course, you don't always fall on your feet immediately. Sometimes you just have to endure the fall.
Which brings us to keeping a stiff upper lip. This one feels very British.
It is, and it means hiding your emotions during severe adversity.
So how does that differ from biting the bullet?
So biting the bullet means deciding to endure a painful situation. It's an internal decision. But keeping a stiff upper lip specifically refers to the outward display.
Ah, like literally keeping your lip from trembling.
Exactly. You are suppressing your emotional reaction so others don't see you panic.
That is so relevant for leadership. Like a colleague might say, despite the devastating loss of the firm's biggest account, she maintained a stiff upper lip to reassure the junior members of the staff.
Right. She's projecting strength even if she's panicking inside. And maintaining that stiff upper lip is so common when our biggest goals feel impossible, or, as we'd say, out of reach.
Out of reach, meaning completely impossible to achieve or obtain at the moment.
The key part there being at the moment.
Okay, so it's not the same as a pipe dream.
Definitely not. A pipe dream is a total fantasy. It will never happen.
Yeah.
But something out of reach is just currently inaccessible.
Yeah.
With steady work, you might grow tall enough to grab it eventually.
Oh, I love that. So a CEO could say, while the company's long-term sustainability goals feel slightly out of reach currently, they provide a necessary vision for our future.
Exactly. It acknowledges the current reality without giving up the ambition. And that naturally leads to the question, how do you actually achieve things that are currently out of reach?
Right. How do you build that ladder?
By shifting how you view time. Which brings us to our final phrase, to use time as clay.
That is such a poetic phrase. Use time as clay.
It really is. It means to shape a situation slowly and deliberately over years.
But doesn't that just mean biding your time?
Not at all. Biding your time is passive. You're waiting for an external opportunity to just happen. But using time as clay is an active, artistic, deliberate shaping of your life or business day by day.
Wow. So for an IELTS response, you could say, she chose to use time as clay, gradually refining her artistic style and business model over a decade, rather than seeking overnight success.
That is a phenomenal way to use it. It shows real maturity in how you describe strategy.
I completely agree. We've covered so much incredible vocabulary today. So it is time for a quick quiz to lock in your learning.
Oh, I love this part.
I know, right?
Okay.
So I will read out the question and 3 options. Option A, option B, and option C. For you listening, feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer. We will jump right in with the answers after I read them.
Let's do it.
Question 1. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase, cut one's teeth correctly based on context? Option A. The professional orthodontist was instructed to cut one's teeth carefully to ensure the patient's bite alignment. Option B. The deeply frustrated young retail clerk aggressively managed to completely drop a white line. Option C. I really cut my teeth in the fast-paced world of local political campaigning, which prepared me for the pressures of national office. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer. The correct answer is option C, cut one's teeth. Remember, this is about gaining foundational career experience, not literal dentistry. Perfect. Question 2. Select the context where the phrase connect the dots is most appropriately used figuratively. Option A. After analyzing the fragmented feedback from our various focus groups, we finally managed to connect the dots and identify the core product flaw. Option B. The professional preschool art teacher was instructed to connect the dots on the worksheet for the 3-year-olds. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
That would be option A, connect the dots. As a reminder, the figurative use means finding the logical relationship in professional or factual data.
Awesome. Question 3. In which situation does someone accurately utilize the advanced phrase buckle down contextually? Option A. The professional safety harness technician was instructed to buckle down the client's gear before the skydiving jump. Option B. With the final regulatory deadline approaching in only 3 days, the entire team had to buckle down and work through the weekend to finish. Option C. The completely terrified young wilderness traveler unexpectedly noticed an exceptionally massive, heavy tool chest. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option B, buckle down. It means intense focus on a task rather than physically fastening a seatbelt.
Right. Question 4. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase, fall on feet, figuratively? Option A. Even after his department was abruptly dissolved, he managed to fall on his feet, landing a better paid position at a competitor within weeks. Option B. The professional gymnastics coach was instructed to ensure the student could fall on feet safely during the landing practice. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly catch that white balance. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
And it is option A, fall on feet. Remember, this describes a remarkably lucky outcome immediately after a difficult change.
Moving right along. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase stiff upper lip contextually? Option A. The professional cosmetic lip filler specialist was instructed to keep a stiff upper lip during the injection procedure. Option B. The completely confused amateur theater group unexpectedly decided to proudly paint a clean tray. Option C. Despite the devastating loss of the firm's biggest account, she maintained a stiff upper lip to reassure the junior members of the staff. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
It's option C, stiff upper lip. This is all about hiding emotional distress during adversity to appear strong for others.
Question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the meaning of the phrase out of reach contextually? Option A. The professional warehouse safety inspector was instructed to keep hazardous chemicals out of reach of the common workspace. Option B. While the company's long-term sustainability goals feel slightly out of reach currently, they provide a necessary vision for our future growth. Option C. The incredibly clumsy hotel maintenance worker accidentally managed to completely drop that red tray. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option B, out of reach. Figuratively, it means something is completely impossible to achieve at the moment, though it might happen later.
Almost done. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase, use time as clay, contextually? Option A. She chose to use time as clay, gradually refining her artistic style and business model over a decade, rather than seeking overnight success. Option B. The professional ceramic pottery instructor was instructed to use time as clay when preparing the materials for the weekend workshop. Option C. The deeply confused young kitchen assistant accidentally managed to quickly slice a fresh piece of clay. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
That is option A, use time as clay. It means actively treating the years ahead as raw material to deliberately shape a goal.
And our final question, question 8. Which of the following statements correctly uses factual data figuratively professionally? Option A. The professional based her recommendation entirely on factual data from the recent customer survey. Option B. The professional baker used factual data to decorate the cake. Option C. The clumsy warehouse worker accidentally dropped factual data. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option A, factual data. Just remember, it refers to objective, verified information, not just conventional wisdom or guesses.
And that is it. I really want to congratulate you for buckling down and getting through that quiz with us.
Yeah, that was intense, but so valuable. And I want to leave you with one final thought derived from our SpeakDuo source material today.
Oh, definitely. Let's hear it.
Think about what happens when you combine all these phrases into a life philosophy. Like, if you use time as clay, then a failure that forces you to fall on your feet isn't actually a disaster.
Right, it's just new material for the sculpture.
Exactly. So ask yourself, how much of what currently feels out of reach in your English learning or your career is just waiting for you to view time differently?
I love that. What a fantastic question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep practicing, and we will see you on the next one.